All right, well, welcome to Conversations That Can, and I've got a very special guest today, so Chris from Early Bird AI. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, and I'll let you maybe just to give a little intro of yourself and what you do and maybe a little bit about Early Bird before we kind of jump into the million questions that I have for you.
Awesome. It's always great introducing yourself. It's like I always don't know what to say. But look, yeah, so I started Early Bird back in February 2024. So I've been running for almost a year now at the time of recording, which has been awesome. And before that, had a digital marketing company for about 10 years doing some marketing for some of Australia's better known, I guess, entrepreneurs in the education and coaching space, which has been phenomenal. Grew up outside of a small little country town called Gympie. Don't hold it against me.
I'm smiling.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful. I think it's great having that sort of country upbringing. Just didn't have a big, wasn't on big acreage, but was on some acreage. Growing, you get to see what life is really like and what it's about. And then, coming down to the Gold Coast here when I was in my early 20s, because it's a little bit boring up there as time goes on.
So different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, over that time, I've spent time, doing real estate sales, which has been great. Had a while actually working with kids with disabilities, which is also a lot of fun. And then from there went into the digital marketing space, which is just amazing. And that's where I think I found what I love in terms of just marketing, solving problems for people and finding ways to sort of communicate the problems and the solutions in a way that makes them act is really interesting. And then that sort of transitioned into obviously AI and Early Bird as well. And that's pretty much what we're doing. We're very focused on helping businesses, convert more leads into customers using AI-powered systems.
I feel like AI is such a hot topic at the moment across all industries, both personal and professional life as well. Can you maybe just talk through a little bit about what is AI? Because I feel like depending on where you are at, like in terms of personal life or even professional, you've probably got different exposure points to AI. So what is it very loosely?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when most people think about AI, they probably think of ChatGPT, and it's a yeah, so do I. It's so good. Hey, it's a good place to start, and it's like a large language model, and so essentially it's not general artificial intelligence where it's like super intelligent and it's aware of life and everything, but it's what's called a large language model. And essentially what it does, you can ask any sort of question, it'll go through all of its database and bring back some really intelligent responses back to you. But it goes beyond, ChatGPT, right? That's one, I guess, platform. So we have text-based platforms, we have image and video-based platforms, which you see all those viral videos like the Will Smith eating spaghetti video. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that one.
It's a hilarious one from back in the day. But look, essentially, I think of AI as just a tool that allows people to do things a lot more quickly and a lot more effectively. And I also think it's a very exciting tool because it democratizes a lot of, I guess, expertise and knowledge. So in the past, it could be a good and a bad thing depending on where you are, but in the past you might have to spend 10, 15 years in a particular industry. If we just take digital marketing, that's what I'm used to. It would take time to learn how to do copywriting, how to put together offers, how to, say things to influence people, all those elements there. But now you can come into the space without any knowledge and use AI, and you could be at the equivalent of someone who's been in there for 5, 10, 15 years very quickly. And it's the same across a lot of different industries. You've got law, you've got health, all those elements there too. So look, fundamentally, people think it's ChatGPT, which is a big piece of AI, but I think of it just as a tool that allows people to do things quicker, faster, or it's the same thing, and a lot more easy as well.
Yeah. So how do people utilize it? If you think about it from a business context or even the clients that you have with Early Bird as well, how do you actually utilize it in business and in the workplace? Yeah,
great question. And look, most people start off using it just with how to write an email, right? Help me improve this email, this blog post, this response. And that's a great first step. A lot of tools are coming out with AI embedded. So even in Gmail, you can sort of click these buttons and it'll help write your emails for you. Yeah, exactly, which is great. So that's I guess level one, people start there. And then when it comes to companies like with Early Bird, what we do, we actually build full end-to-end systems. So our core product essentially is basically it's like a executive, basically, where it can handle all of your incoming calls or your incoming messages and respond to people instantly, answer their questions, qualify them, book them in for appointments. Now, that's all done by AI. but it's also it's a lot different than just going there and saying, hey, help me write this email too. So I think businesses can use this for a number of different ways. They could use it to qualify their leads. They could use it for improving their systems and processes. So a lot of tools like Monday, Asana, ClickUp, all those things that have AI components built in. Look, I think the biggest opportunity, which is why we've gone this with Early Bird, is this whole lead to conversion space, because it's difficult to solve, but once you've solved it, it becomes very, very valuable. Yeah. So just to give you an example, we have clients where they're out on the road, they're doing work, like whether they're tradies or even just on appointments and things like that too. And while they're doing those things, AI is actually having conversations with people who are inquiring about their products and services and booking people in for sales appointments while they're working on other things too. So they no longer have to stop what they're doing and get back to people, or don't respond and lose the lead. AI can do it all for them instantly. So it's very, very powerful.
Are you finding that people are resistant to adopting AI?
Some. So it depends if their job's on the line, and just speaking the reality. So the reality is that AI will have a disruptive impact on jobs. It will replace certain people's jobs. They're going to have to retool, reskill, and that's where we find the resistance. Last year, there was a lot more resistance because people were thinking like, oh, people won't like to talk to AI. They'll be able to tell. Most people don't even know they're talking to AI.
Oh my God, this happened to me the other day.
Well, what happened?
I messaged someone on Instagram actually about the podcast, and I think I told you this, and I messaged them, and it was like a big long message like, hey, we know each other, blah, blah, blah. It responded pretty much straight away, and I was like, gee, that was quick. And it was a really well-written message, and I was just like, oh, he answered everything that I asked him. Literally 30 seconds later, he sent me a voice note and said, hey, sorry about that. That was my AI response. And he deleted it. And I was like, if that is your AI, that is brilliant. Like, I couldn't tell. And normally, I use ChatGPT, and you can kind of sometimes tell a little bit.
That's right.
But I couldn't tell at all.
Yep, absolutely. And we have that exact same reaction, or we have clients having that exact same reaction and passing it on to us all the time. Because, if you're using just ChatGPT, that's fine. But when you train it and you put the time and effort into it, then it can sound like you're just talking to a person. So, look, there is a little bit of resistance, or there has been a little bit of resistance, mainly coming from people who are a little bit threatened with their jobs. However, I think most business owners, they're overcoming that resistance just by necessity. Yeah. And the reason being is the reality is, costs are going up. Right, things are getting expensive, and it's getting tight out there for a lot of different industries and spaces, and so naturally, business owners have to look for ways to maximize every opportunity so they don't lose anything or get a lot more efficient as well. And so that quickly overcomes anyone's objections, because one example of this was one of our clients. They're paying someone $80,000 a year just to call people who inquire, and they can get an AI solution at a fraction of that price. And, they're all about it. So
it makes sense.
It just comes down to practicality. And I think 2024 was the year of discovery for most people with AI. I think 2025 is going to be the year of implementation for AI with most businesses.
What are some of the trends with AI as well that you see in the market? Because although there's a massive uplift with AI and people kind of using it in their everyday life and business, what are some of the things that we should be looking for? And is it also then, because we're changing so fast, what's the evolution of AI as well? Yeah,
it's moving very, very quickly, and even I'm surprised. ChatGPT came out to the general public release, I think, in November 2022. So it's been barely a couple of years, and already people are just so used to it, and they're thinking, it's pretty basic. And I'm thinking, well, if you think about that, this is groundbreaking technology that's come out literally 2 years ago, and people are already used to that there, which is crazy. But I think the evolution of this is we're going to get to the point where, right now, we're still interfacing and talking with AI, whether we're texting, whether we're talking to it and having it talk back. That's how we interface with it. Where it's going to go to is where we're going to have our own AI agents interacting with other AI agents. And I guess if you go down that path of Neuralink, you could also just be thinking and going down that path there too. So, look, the thing that's going to happen here is speed is going to matter, because the change is happening faster, and also there's a lot more change as well. So, for example, you can literally in ChatGPT and also Google with their app as well, you can have a FaceTime or just screen recording of the video, and it can talk to you about what it's seeing. You can interact with it, say, hey, what's that over there? And explain. And so that's huge. And that wasn't possible 6, even 9 or even 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And things are just happening very, very quickly. So I think, the big trend is literally adoption. So people are going to start using it more. It's going to become a necessity, not just an optionality.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think, businesses and people that use AI are going to have a big advantage. But the thing they need to be thinking about is how do you then have an advantage when everyone else is using the same AI as well? And so adoption is going to be massive, and just continual change is going to be massive as well. So we have to be very, very adaptable. Yeah.
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 So I remember going to a business summit, I think it was a couple of years ago, and the person that there said, if you're not using AI every day or ChatGPT every day, you're already behind.
Yeah.
So how does somebody use it to get the most out of it at the same time?
That's a good question. Really good question. So I guess it depends on what they're using it for. But I think the key is use it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I've learned, especially last year, is just do, right? Alex Hormozy calls it procedural knowledge, because there's two different types of knowledge. There's knowledge you get from reading a book or even watching videos or whatever, learning about things. And then there's knowledge you get from doing. And so if people start using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, all these sort of AI tools, you'll learn so much quicker and you'll get so much further ahead. That's just what I recommend. Just start doing it, because it's also kids with social media and phones, right? So you give a kid a phone and social media, they're a native at it, right? Because they've grown up using it and they're so used to it. Whereas people who grew up without it, they sort of struggle. So the quicker you can sort of get in amongst it, get comfortable, the more advantage you'll get from it too.
So what do you use it for outside of business?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Should I ask that question?
I think we were talking about this a little while ago. I think, look, I'm not on any dating apps, but I think there'll be a lot of people using it for dating apps and everything. But look, typically it's more just, the emails, it's content, coming up with video ideas, even outlines. Look, honestly, the sad reality is for last year, especially, much of my life was just business.
Yeah.
So I haven't really used it much outside of that. But I think, a lot of people would be using it for things your dating, just general replying back to people, that sort of stuff too.
All right, let's go there. How can you tell if you're talking to someone that has used AI or ChatGPT?
Well, yes, it's difficult. There's a few things you can look out for. If it sounds a little bit too positive, right? If it's using a little bit too many nice words and things like that, that's usually just a general giveaway. But the reason why I say it's difficult is because you can train it to not sound like that at all.
Yeah.
So we actually, really interesting point. So I think last year it wouldn't, or as far as I know anyway, it wouldn't swear in any of our messages.
Yeah.
We actually had a client request this, and we got it in there, and now it's swearing in the messaging, and you would have no idea. So if it's just someone who's just putting very little effort into the AI, prompting and just saying, hey, write me an email, you'll be able to tell, because it uses big generic words, things that's going to make it sound smart, a little bit overly positive and too upbeat. But if they're using it intelligently, you won't be able to tell. It's
which is kind of scary. It's great and scary at the same time, because you're losing that human to human connection, and that's what we were just talking about as well, is the human behind everything, right? So if people are utilizing AI to connect with people, what's the actual negative impact of that as well?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot. And the other thing too, just to sort of preface this, is I think we just have to be very pragmatic with how we look at things. Whether you think it's good or bad, it is, and so you have to sort of play the game around that. So in terms of negative things, I think we're going to be using our mind less. We don't have to sit and think about how we're going to respond. And that's going to have knock-on effects, is how do you then have a sit-down conversation like this?
Yeah.
If you're just so used to AI, write me a response, how do I respond to this?
Yeah.
We'll sort of lose that sense of just general communication and connection. But that being said, there's also an opportunity, because for those of us who don't do that, and for those of us who want to be a little bit more ambitious, it becomes a great thing, because the competition is going to go down, because they're going to, if they get over-reliance on the AI, I think that's a big negative, a big potential negative as well, becoming over-reliant on it. So, even for myself, I use it quite a lot, but I still force myself to still write emails and do things that, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I'll still, sit down and craft my own emails, write out video scripts and all those sorts of things myself.
Yeah.
But then I know that I have the ability, if I have a time crunch or something like that, I need to get things out quickly, I can use AI to get it done quickly as well. So,
which is great. I've used it for, I think it's great. I've used it both in personal and business, and like a lot of my friends are coaches. So if I've got something going on, I've got a really good support network. But I remember one time I used ChatGPT and I was like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is everything that's going on. This is the situation. This is my pattern. Like, what am I missing? And it was brilliant. I said, how do I actually change that pattern? And it gave me all this step-by-step stuff as well for me to action. And it was great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can understand why people would utilize it in everyday life, and it does get to know you at the same time. It stores that in memory, which is good. So it can say, okay, well, what about this or that? So it can kind of pull back on some of the other questions that you asked it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually know several people who do that too. They sort of talk back and forth a little about how they're feeling, and sort of it'll coach them through. And I've even seen some videos on the internet too where people start developing an attachment with the AI too, like they're treating it like their boyfriend or girlfriend and things like that too. And it's like, oh, might be pushing a little bit far, but it's happening. So it's interesting.
Well, I mean, that's when that connection piece comes in place, because and I suppose so many people are connected to their phone at the same time, right? But it's like that human connection, which I know for me, that's one of my highest values. And so I, want to see people and connect with people face to face over a phone.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people might say that, look, using AI, you're going to lose that connection. But the other thing that it could allow people to do is spend more time together having conversations like this, because they don't have to spending hours writing their emails, responding to people, those sorts of things too. So
that's back time, hey?
Yeah, it could. Yeah. It just depends on how you use it.
Yeah. So. How did you get into AI?
Great question. So I've been using it, I think, since July 2021, I think it was. So before ChatGPT came out. So I got an early access, which is really good. And it was through the digital marketing company. So basically what we're looking for is always looking for advantages, because I guess especially before ChatGPT came out and AI came out, copywriting was a very expensive skill to pay for. Yeah. So you'd have to pay people thousands of dollars. They go meditate on a mountaintop, spend weeks and weeks and weeks, and they'll come back with this couple of headlines and emails, right? And you go, oh yeah, it's good, but I want to change this. So basically we're looking for some ways that we can write ads, landing pages and emails more effectively. And so we started using AI around there, and that's actually what really got me really interested in it. Was we literally just plugged in one of our clients' existing products and offers, and similar to you said, this is what it's all about, this is what it's going to do. And it spat out, literally a whole landing page, series of emails, and also a set of different ads within a matter of seconds. And it was probably 80% of what we needed done. Back then, it wasn't quite as good as it is now, but still doing 80% of the work was just mind-boggling. And I saw that, and I was like, no, this is the future. And since then, I've just been obviously diving right into that whole space.
How do you stay ahead of it at the same time, because things are moving pretty quickly? How do you make sure that what you're doing, that technology is the right one?
Yeah, it's actually really it's a great question. So it's kind of a bit of two things. One is, yes, you got to stay ahead of it, but the other thing is you also kind of don't have to stay ahead of it, because if you do stay at the very forefront, or for me, speaking personally, if I'm at the forefront of what's actually happening out there, it gets very overwhelming, and I sit there going, oh man, what we just worked on a few months ago is oh, we need to update this, update that. The reality is, though, there are still people out there right now that have never used ChatGPT, right? And this is maybe not the majority, but a large percentage of people. I spoke with someone recently, actually, who works at a big corporate here in Australia, very well recognized insurance company, and they were saying even then they're starting to bring it in there, and most people have what is this? Yeah. And so look, staying at the forefront is important, but I kind of try to live between two worlds, right? So one which is staying at the forefront, and the other one is back at the present, right? Which is where things are right now. So I'm always out there looking at new tools and what's out there and available, but then also bringing it right back to what's the practical use case of that, because a lot of the reality is a lot of the new tools and new things that are out there right now, they're just not quite at, I guess, a point where it's ready for a business to use. And so like it might be like 80% there, where it's like, oh, this little thing's like a little bit disappointing, as an example, like the old, AI images with 6 fingers as an example back in the day, right? And so in terms of like, how do we stay like, how do we ensure that what we're building now remains like adaptable for the future? And it's basically around building solutions that are, very adaptable and open for other things to plug into. So whenever we build a solution, we've picked a few platforms that we believe are going to be around forever. So obviously your ChatGPT, your Claude, all those elements, and we have the options and the capacity of going between them. So if ever one of them goes down, we have that redundancy in there as well.
Yeah.
And we've also built our processes in a way that we can shift if needed. And so I think if people are looking at like staying at the forefront or thinking about building and implementing AI solutions, you've got to have that ability to, I guess, adapt as things grow. And so pick platforms that are going to be around for a long time. So you'll see like a lot of like ChatGPT clones, all those sort of things that, people are just spinning up. A lot of the time they're just like literally people putting something over top of ChatGPT, which is a little bit sketchy. But so pick the ones that you believe are going to be around for a long time, and just be flexible. And I'd say also use more than one platform at once. So again, like don't just use ChatGPT, use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. Yeah.
So you mentioned about like an employee at a large corporate, and I'd imagine if they don't need it for their everyday job, they might not use ChatGPT. And I mean, like that's a massive generalization. But for people that are listening and they've like never used it before, what's something that they can use it for on a daily basis?
Yeah, a lot of things. So kind of like what you were saying as well, like, just checking in on, how you're feeling, and maybe some coaching and advice on how to, feel better. Diet and exercise. It can give you entire diet plans, exercise plans, obviously your emails, those sorts of things there too. Yeah. If you are out there on the apps and the dating apps, it can go and...
No, don't say that, no.
Hey, I think it's already happening.
I'm not listening to that. I reject that comment.
What else can we do? There's a whole bunch of things like that is what you can do. But I think... probably one of the best things to do is actually just ask AI what it can do, because I think that's the biggest limitation I see from people is they don't realize what AI can do. So they're like looking at this one little small slice of what's possible, and they just use it for this, and they don't realize they can actually do all of these other things. And if you just ask it, say, hey, actually, can you help me with this? And it will tell you yes or no, and this is how we can do it. So could even help you with like negotiation tips. If you're buying a house or a car, or selling a house or a car, preparing for a job interview, all those sorts of elements there. Yeah, exactly. And well, you can, it can even, I've seen people do this actually, where you test yourself preparing for an interview. So it'll act like the interviewer and you'll be the interviewee, and you go back and forth and it gives you critiques. This is how you can improve. And then you just go over and over and over again.
That's a great tip actually, to use it that way as well. I didn't realize you could go back and forth that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, people like if they're reading a book, then they get ChatGPT to give them a little test to make sure that they've actually absorbed the information. Yes. So if they're reading Alex Hormozy or something like that, give me like 10 questions from the actual book to make sure that I've absorbed, and then you answer that like a little test. And you're like, okay, cool. I read it, and now I can implement that information.
That's it. Yeah. Well, it's all about preparation, right? So whether you're going for an interview, trying to land a new client, or whatever it is, deliver a presentation, it's all about repetition and preparation. And so AI will allow you to do that. It won't get bored. You could do it 10, 15, 20 times if you'd like to as well. And it actually gives really good advice as well. So,
yeah, that's great. So I know that you are, or last year, you're very much in the startup phase of Early Bird, and you were doing some massive hours.
Crazy hours.
What's your drive behind that as well? So what keeps you going, and for you just to continuously show up on,
it's a good question, actually. Look, I think there's a few things. Obviously, family. So my mum is very important, and, as parents and as parents do, and we all do, we get older and have needs and things like that too. So I want to make sure she can have a as comfortable a time as possible as she gets older and goes through that whole process. Also, I guess like animals is my big thing, so I like to sort of donate to a lot of like animal charities and things like that too. So I want to just try to leave the world a little bit better than how I arrived in it, if that makes sense. But also another thing that drives me is it's a bit of fear. And it's like the fear, and I sit there going, man, I think the window of opportunity is closing. Now, it's not to say there's not going to be any opportunity. There's always that. But we're in such a golden opportunity time, like right now. So I'm trying to like race and get as much as possible while the going is good, if that makes sense as well. And I think there's that sense of urgency of, I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, whatever that period of time is. And just trying to do that while the opportunity is there. So I think that sort of is a big driver. And just making sure I don't look back and regrets. Because we've all got those actually regrets, right? So I should have bought Bitcoin at 300. Right? I should have gotten into social media like ages ago. Should have had all those sorts of things. And for me, like I'm 36 right now, so I've seen obviously early days was like the websites and internet revolution, social media revolution, and crypto revolution, and even some like real estate things too. And it's like you go, that was some great opportunities. I could have taken that, but didn't. And so you want to really, well, for me, I'm really wanting to go hard at this opportunity while it's here. Because again, like everything, they only have a limited cycle where it's, the golden hour, I guess. So.
Like you're around a lot of business people, and I know that you've got like, you've come from that as well, business, and you're in that startup phase now. What are the qualities do you think that make people successful in what they're doing?
That's a good question. I think resilience and just persistence, I think, is that, and focus. Yeah. And so, like the reality is, I speak pretty lightly of it, but last year was probably one of the hardest and most challenging years of my entire life. Even though things are like, there's a lot going on, it was extremely tough and challenging. And so during that time, you just have to stick and persist even when things are difficult. And the other thing too is really focusing in. So with Early Bird, we started off when we first launched with like a model that we'd help businesses with called the ACDC model, which is attract, convert, deliver, and collect, which is basically like a full end-to-end. We'd basically say we can do anything for your business, which we could, right? And that's the reality. But the problem is when you're doing everything and anything, it gets very difficult because, you can't get any sort of like systems in place. It's very difficult to scale all those things. And so the more that we've cut away and focused in on certain problems and certain products, the better things have been becoming. And so I think another quality would also just be action, because I think I thought prior to last year I was acting in business and doing things in business, but last year, to your point, I was working harder than I've ever worked before in my life. And I sat there thinking, wow, I've got like, there's another gear that sort of kicked in. So I think the qualities that people possess is, they act, they do things, they stick, right? Because you look at all the people, whether it's in the network I've got or just business people in general, they say it takes 10 years to create like an overnight success. So you look at where they are right now and you go, wow, that business they just did, last year or a few years ago was really successful. What you don't see is all the other ones they've done leading into it. And so they've stuck with it and they've persisted and they've remained focused as well. And the other thing too is acting regardless of how you feel. And so I get this a lot from like, Alex Hormozy, even Layla Hormozy as well. They both have some things. And I think it's Layla that says it really well. It's like, it doesn't matter how you feel. Like, you can still, like if you act a certain way, whether you feel good or bad, like you're feeling your action. And so, it's last year, especially for me, like the amount of things I was like acting, even when I wasn't feeling like doing that. I think that's really what determines, success or not.
I think people wait for like, motivation, which is a feeling, and feelings can come and go.
They do.
And you just have to have the discipline and the consistency and, as you said, the focus to actually show up regardless. And sometimes it's hard to do that as well. Like
exactly. Well, often it's very hard because, the other thing too, like the reality is like, especially if you're going into business and entrepreneurship, like it can be very lonely, so you have times where, team needs things from you, clients needs things from you, whatever, all those things. And you're like, well, you're sort of there. It can get quite lonely. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so you've just got to act no matter how you're feeling. Because I mean, if you just think about it on a more personal note, if you're in a relationship, you go, I felt like making you a cup of coffee this morning. So your other half, and they can go, that felt nice. good on you for feeling like that. But did you do it? And it's like, no. But if you made them a coffee, even if you felt like rubbish, like that is what actually counts. It's like what you did, not how you felt. Because, you can have the best of intentions, but if you don't act on them, then it counts for nothing. And so, and I think it's even more important now with AI because, again, businesses have to act. People have to act. We're going through like a monumental shift that I don't think many people really, they're not really aware of.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. So what shifted for you from last year to also now, and has that mindset shifted for you as well?
Yeah, so it has. So the beauty of it is when you go through the hard challenging times, because there's, we've made a lot of mistakes and stuff, like, we're far from perfect, right? But you go through and you realize, yes, you can, right? You can go through that because you sort of, I would doubt, oh man, how would I feel when that happens? Then when you realize, you just go through and you do it and you go, wow, I can now do that. But definitely the focus has been a big one, right? So I said it before, we started off doing everything. Now we have 3 core products we sell. And the more that we've focused in on that, the better we've gotten at those 3 core products and the better the results have been. And then that allows like systems and processes. The team isn't as confused. They know what they need to do now. And they don't always have to come to me or someone else on the team for questions. They know what they need to do. So realistically focusing in, cutting out more than, cut things out is actually better. It felt really bad for me. I was like, surely, the more we do, the better it's going to be. But actually it's the opposite. Focus, sticking power, and just knowing that, no matter how you feel, you just have to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of contradictory advice, I think, when it comes to that, about like going broad and then niche down. And, it's like when you're a new business, like you don't want to say no in a way.
Yes.
Because you don't know exactly like, will my message stick here, here, or here? Will they want this product or this product or this product? And so it's kind of like, what should you actually do? And again, I am far from perfect, but I believe like at the beginning, go broad if you have to, right? But the key is to act. And so I think of it like as you put your arms out like 180 degrees, as long as you're moving somewhere in this forward direction, forward, right? Even if you're going like that way, like completely like at 179 out of 180 degrees, then you'll learn. You'll hit a wall because you'll get to the point where you can no longer go down that path. Right. And then you go, okay, cool. Now what I'm going to do? So then you stop, you reorient, and you go forward. So it's kind of like a zigzag. Yeah. And what I found anyway is that the more you act and the more you keep on going, the zigzag gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So like you'll go through the highs, the lows, the highs and the lows. And each and every time, because you learn, from doing, and I'm assuming you're going to stop and think and do things a little bit differently, things get a little bit more focused. So I think if you're just getting started out, just do anything. Start broad. The data, right?
That's right. And then you'll adjust, because for us, if we started off with what we had right now, I don't think we'd be here, because we wouldn't know how to communicate that back in the early days. We're still figuring things out and everything too. You've got to, or in my view, you've got to go through that process. And I think it's also just a life cycle. Yeah. I think, for most businesses, you're just going to go through that.
And you pivot. And I think when it comes to it, like people go, oh, I made that decision, I have to stick with that decision now. And I think when it comes to business especially, actually, and in any context in life, right? By you making a decision, it doesn't mean that that's your only decision, because then you get to that point and go, okay, now I can make another decision, and you can pivot and you can change like as many times as you want as well throughout that whole process. And that's the whole point of actually the momentum and the doing, is because then you get the feedback. That's it. Then you can go, okay, cool, this is my next step. That's it. Yeah. And the only time that's a mistake and it's wasted is if you stop. Yeah. Because if you keep on going, you're going to keep on learning and pivoting, learning and pivoting, and you'll eventually figure it out and find that thing there too. Yeah, we've learned that now with Katie and I, with our business, that where we were probably more generalised and now we're niching. Yes. And it gets clearer with the messaging and who we're talking to as well, and what we're actually offering. So, but at the start we were like, okay, cool, this is what we want to create. Now we've got to work out the how. Yeah. And so we're now at that point as well, which is really good. That's more clarity. It is. And I think especially in entrepreneurship and business, like we're all optimists, and, we make our best educated guess, and you test it out as to what's actually there, and you adjust accordingly. And, you wouldn't be where you are now if you hadn't acted and continued back then. So I think that's like a really brilliant lesson, is that you learn through the doing and through the failures. And people see failure as a bad thing, but failure is actually a great thing. And there's so much at the moment around, you know, experimenting. And the more that you experiment, the more that you go, okay, yes, let's go this way, or no, that didn't work. And the more that you can kind of throw at that, the more data that you'll have to make that decision.
Big time. Well, but even just like diving into like what is failure? Like if you've gone down this path and it's not working, is it really a failure or is it just a lesson?
Yeah, good shout. Reframe.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like, you know, have you failed? It's like Edison had his, you know, that quote where it's like, I haven't failed 10,000 times. I've just found 10,000 ways that, you know, not to create a light bulb. You know, I know the numbers are not right, but, you know, that whole general sentiment, you know. And so, yeah, I don't view things like pivoting and making mistakes as failures. I just view them as lessons. And I think it's the right way to go.
Speaking of lessons, like what have been your biggest life lessons that you can, or pivotal moments for you of like change as well?
Well, there's been a lot. I think, so first, obviously, you know, parents splitting up when I was 10 is obviously a big change because I was growing up here on the Gold Coast, and that then led to the shift up to the country. And so that was a very pivotal moment, which I think very difficult at the time, and, you know, completely different timeline. But so that's definitely one thing. The other one was also shifting from like being an employee to actually going out on my own business. And that's, you know, it's difficult, kind of like what we were talking about just beforehand as well, just in terms of like, you know, when you don't have that sort of job you've got to show up to, don't have that sort of set of boxes you've got to check, there's a period of time when you're sort of like off in the wilderness and you've got to try to figure out what the heck you need to do. So that's definitely a big pivotal time as well. And I've got to say also, the Early Bird founding last year was also massive because it just took, you know, I was doing pretty well with the digital marketing side of things, but like this has taken things to the next level just in terms of the work, the lessons, and all those elements there too. So, and that I've got to say, like, is just the people I've got around me. Like, I'm very fortunate with people who I know, people in my network, and yeah, they're pivotal. You know, like, yeah, I can't sort of shout them out enough. They're awesome. Yeah, and there's too many to sort of name because like every single person, no matter how big or small, they play a big part. So.
Yeah, and like that's what it's all about too, right? Is having the network around you and the people around you to support and share as well. Because big like time. If you don't have that, what's the point?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's actually really interesting too, because like last year people were also saying, because like, just to give a bit of context, I was sleeping on average like 4 hours a night last year for most of the year, not all year, but most of the year. And people go, well, what's the point? What are you doing this for? And ironically, it was actually for, you know, the people, because it's like, hey, I want to be able to be a support for people in my network. I want to be able to spend more time with people in my network and all those elements there too. But I think also like when you're starting something new, you've got to push a little bit harder to then be able to coast. Just like, you know, bodybuilding, which clearly I'm not into bodybuilding, but you got to bulk up. Well, there you go. Maybe that's right, exactly. But you got to bulk and then you maintain, right? Yeah. So, and during that bulk phase, you're working a lot extra, you're eating a lot more, all those elements. But then after that, you can maintain. And so, last year especially was that, you know, acceleration mode, which is ironically for, you know, the people in you know, network and family and things like that too. So,
and I think also like we all have seasons of life and we have different priorities and they change. So for you, you're in a different season to what you probably are now, and that's where probably communication comes into play as well, in actually communicating that to the people around you to say, hey, I love you.
Yes. This
is my priority at the moment. This is my focus. Like, you need it, you know, and that's, you just need to let people know what's going on. Big
time. And it also, like, it's self-selection for people too, because people who really do want the best for you, they'll support it.
Yeah.
I just look at balance a little bit differently. So a lot of people go, I'm going to work 5 days a week to have 2 days a week off and a couple of weeks off a year. I'm thinking I'm going to work really hard for 2 to 3, 4 years, whatever that period of time is, and then have the rest of my life. You know, that's something that too. So,
do the hard work now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do have a hard life now for an easy life later.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, rather than the other way around.
The other thing too is with no expectation of the easy life either. So I think, you know, especially now, it's actually good to chase the hard, just for the sake of chasing the hard, right? Because well, in my view, if I'm just trying to work hard for the next couple of years, expecting life to get easier afterwards, you know, I don't think that'll work because, you know, it's very difficult. So I'm just like, no, chasing the hard no matter what. And if things get easier and better, great, I'll still maintain. Not to the same level. Yeah, but yeah.
I wonder though, because then would you actually stop? And this is something that I've been playing around with at the same time. So right now you're so driven and you're in that mindset. You have a goal that you want to achieve, right? When you get to that level or when you achieve that goal, is it just ingrained in you though that you just then want to go for the next thing? So like, is there like, I get last year was a season for you and you were really ramping up and full focus there, but it's also you.
Yeah, that's right. I think there'll be an element of that, but I think what the goals are will shift and change. Eventually it's like have a family, and then it's like, okay, cool, then it's shifts into those things there too. So yeah, I don't think that the drive will ever go away, and I think it's just something that especially if you're on entrepreneurship and business, you just have like it's like a game, that's the thing too. You just want to keep on playing. So I think, but what can happen there is you can shift your goals and your attention and focus, and I think I'd like to have a good balance of family and business eventually, but at the same time I've got to get to that point where that's possible. So.
I'm excited for you for that stage of life too. So come back to some tips as well. So if somebody is employed, and I know that you gave examples of what they can do for their personal life. So if someone is employed, how can they utilize AI for their work? Yeah,
so it's a really good question. So first and foremost is obviously the ChatGPT, right? Using that for whatever you need to do. So I guess one thing I'd sort of give there is like a bit of a general prompting tip, right? So whether you're looking to nail the interview, whether you're looking to nail the email, the landing, whatever it is you need to do with AI in general, but particularly ChatGPT, is ask it for whatever you need to get. And then no matter what you get back from the AI, say, this is great, right? But if this is a 5 out of 10, let's dial it up to an 8 out of 10, right? You can go a 9 or a 10 if you'd like to. Yes. And so what'll happen is it'll like the AI will take whatever it's got and just ramp it up to the next level. And you can repeat that as many times as you'd like. Don't do a 10 out of 10, because if you do that, the world will explode. But definitely like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And so if you're in an employee or whatever it is you're doing, business, all those things, that one little prompt will actually really drastically improve everything, So I'd definitely do that.
Okay. If you are a business owner, what's your suggestion there? Yeah,
100% you have to be using and adopting AI in the business, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. So from an early bird perspective, we're obviously helping businesses with the lead to conversion rate, because basically people now, consumers, they're not patient, right? They expect answers instantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So basically installing a system, which obviously we can do, that engages with leads straight away, qualifies them, answers any questions they've got, books them in for an appointment, and then follows them up. Absolutely doing that. But whether you use a system like that or not, you need to be bringing it into your business so that you can do things for project management, you can do things for inventory management, documentation and videos. If you're in business, you have to start using it, and it's beyond just ChatGPT. So it's taking AI and putting AI systems in place. That's an absolute must.
Would you even suggest that someone that is like a solopreneur as well, or does it depend on the size of your organization or business? Yeah, no,
absolutely everybody, right? So, but the reason you're going to do it is different, right? So if you're a solopreneur, you're going to be doing it because you need to maximize all of your time, right? And you have limited resources and you can't pay a lot of people to help you out. So that's why you're going to use it there. If you're a more established business doing like really like 10 million plus, 5 million plus, whatever that thing is, you're looking for efficiencies, right? How do you get more profit out of your revenue? So I think, yes, every business needs to be doing it regardless of whether you're a solopreneur all the way up to like a massive corporation, but the reasons for it is going to be a little bit different. And so that might influence, I guess, where you start. So for example, again, if you are sort of getting started to more like in the growth and scale phase, you might want to start with a lead generation system potentially. If you're looking at like more like established corporation, you might be looking at more efficiencies with project management and elements like that.
Yeah, it's really good tips there.
Yeah, the key is just to start.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you are getting any resistance from people in the team, ignore it. You just have to get it going. And also the other thing too I'd say is also upskill your employees too. So offer some training to them on how to use AI, because if you can make them more efficient and more capable with AI. So key example, this is one of the clients. We've trained their team, their social media team, on how to use AI to create posts better, all those other things there too. And that's then freed them up now to do video. And they couldn't do it in the past. They've wanted to do it for a very, very long time, but the videos are absolutely crushing it. But they just didn't have the time to have the creativity, do the editing and all those elements, because I was spending so much time writing social media posts, writing blog posts and all those elements there too. So teach your team how to use AI and implement AI systems in the business.
Yeah. So you gave a prompt a minute ago just in regards to like how can you take it from a 5 to higher.
Yes.
What other prompts do you have?
Yeah, so I guess probably the best thing would be just the framework. It's the CTL framework, so I call it the control framework. So basically it's give the AI context for what it's about to do, because you know in your head what you want, why it's doing it, and I guess the reason for the task, but the AI has no idea. And so if you can give it that context, that'd be great. Then you want to give it the task itself, and then you want to give it any limitations. So for an example, this could be, I'm preparing for a job interview at XYZ company, and my experience is XYZ. So this is the context, right? You're giving it the background. Then the task is design a set of interview questions that we can role play, right? That's the task. The limitations could be, look, I want each question to be like really easy, right? Or if you're writing an email, it could be like 200 words or less, as an example. So if you follow that framework with all of your prompts, you'll get massive improvements, because a lot of the time people will just give it the task, right? Or they'll just give it the limitations and all those things there too. And another one, this might sound a little bit harsh. Yeah. But remember, you're talking to an AI. So the other thing too is, so look, the goal of this, right, is to, so let's just say you're writing an email, right? Because that's just something that I think a lot of people can resonate with. When it comes to writing the subject line for an email, you might want to say, look, the subject line, if 99 people who read the subject line, 99 out of 100 people who read the subject line don't open the email, this will be regarded as a complete failure, right? So just that little phrasing there is enough to really make the AI work really, really hard, and it's very, very effective. So I use that in combination with the CCL framework, and also the other one there too, with the 5 out of 10, and a few other ones there too, that it takes your prompts into the next level.
I'm going to use them.
Yeah.
Yep. Write those down.
Let me know how you go.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. Just a couple of last questions. So what's a piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Yeah, definitely act, and don't be afraid of what other people are going to think or what they're going to do. And just act faster is really what it comes down to. Because I sort of especially after this last year, I wish I was doing this back when I was in my 20s, just acting, because back then I'd be reading more books and learning that way. And it's important to read books. I'm not saying don't read books and don't learn and don't do those things, because they're useful, but you'll learn a lot faster and a lot more deeply by actually doing. So don't just think about what you want to do.
Take the
what
action.
You're going to do. That's right, exactly. And just don't stop taking the action too. Because the other thing too actually is, when you first start, nothing's going to work and you're not going to see any results. You have to keep on going for a period of time before you start seeing the results. So act and then don't stop.
Yeah. And then also, who's your biggest inspiration at the moment?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one. Look, I've got a lot. So look, obviously my mum, right? First of all, it's very, very motivating. But I think, people like Adam and Eric and even Josh, who's also in the team there too, get a lot from them. I mentioned Alex and Layla Hormozy earlier as well. They're absolutely phenomenal. But look, I try to draw inspiration from literally everybody, right? So no matter how big or small, no matter whether it's a positive or a negative thing, if I have a negative interaction with someone or something, it's inspiring me to get better, right?
Learning.
That's right, exactly. And if it's a positive one as well, actually, I'd be remiss to also Wayno, very good guy. I think the people in my life is definitely that. So
I love that. And then what's one question that you were hoping I would ask that I haven't asked that you wanted to share?
Where should I send that? No. It's a good question. Look, I don't know if there is one. I think it's been a great conversation. I think we've covered a lot of different things. No, I think I can't think of any.
Yeah.
It's been good. Is there anything you can think of, or is it just...
No, that was a lucky last question for you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the time to join me on the podcast, Conversations That Count. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting feedback from the audience as well. And I'm sure there'll be other chats in the future too.
It's a pleasure. And hope everyone's enjoyed.
Yeah.